All right, guys, good morning. Sorry I can't be here today. I want to go through the lesson though. We're talking about applying properties today as strategies when we simplify addition and subtraction problems. So the first thing that we're going to look at is a new strategy called decomposing a number. We're then going to look at some different properties that you'll be using in your practice. So please take out the first sheet that you picked up, which starts out like this. And the first thing that we're talking about is how we can write the fraction 2 and 2/5 as the sum of a whole number and a fractional part. And so if I'm thinking of how I can break that down, and then even how it would look on this number line. So feel free to set up your number line with me. I'm going to go 0, 1, 2. And setting it up for the next problem, I'm also going to label -1, -2. And I noticed that the fraction I'm talking about is fifths. And so I'm going to draw in 4 little tick marks in between each whole number to split it up into fifths. And I'll do the same thing on the negative side. Okay. Now I see this fraction 2 and 2/5. And I know it's made up of the whole number 2 plus another 2/5 out toward the next whole number. So I could rewrite 2 and 2/5 as 2 plus 2/5. And that one may have seemed pretty easy to figure out, but the reason that we went through it with a positive is so it makes sense when we talk about a negative. So we know that -2 and 2/5 is the opposite of 2 and 2/5. Those are what we call additive inverses. So we know if we add them together, the sum is 0. So think about this in terms of opposites. And how can we decompose 2 and 2/5? So at the end, I want a whole number plus a fractional part. So let's start out with the whole number. The whole number is -2. But now when I go to write in the fractional part, it's still 2/5 going out this way. So when I write that as an equation, it would look like plus a -2/5. And sorry, I lost my negative sign here. Let me just erase. So plus a -2 and 2/5. So please have this on your notes. Please set up the number line and please write the fractional parts just like this. Where people tend to make a mistake is that they write it in as -2 plus 2/5. And just to show you on the number line what that would look like, don't write this in because it's wrong. I started out at -2, but then if I add 2/5 this way, I actually end at the fraction -1 and 3/5, which is not what we're going for in this fraction -2 and 2/5. So we're going further out in the negative direction, and that's how it should be modeled on your number line. We're going to look at some different practice problems next. So how I want to do the next couple is I'll do the first one, and then I'll ask you to pause the video and work with a partner, and then we'll talk about how you solved it. So you can use the number line if you want. You can use the blank number lines that I gave you last week. But looking at this first example, -9 and 5/8 would be -9 plus, out toward the negative side still, a -5/8. So please pause this video now and solve letter B with a partner. So now I'm going to talk about letter B. So again, if you haven't paused the video, please pause the video now to solve letter B with a partner. But if I'm looking at letter B, I should have -2 out toward the negative side, -7/12. The next examples on your paper are kind of going the other way with it. So if we've got the decomposition already there, how would I add them together to get an actual mixed number? So putting those pieces together, I would have -1 and 7/11. So again, please pause the video to complete letter B with a partner. And then letter B should be -1 and 75/100, -1.75. Okay, if we look at number 5, and I do want you to pause the video to do number 5 with a partner now before we just talk about it. There isn't a second example to do after I go through one with you. So the problem reads, Alex and Aiden are working on their homework and are asked to write -4 plus 3/4 as a mixed number. Alex told Aiden that it cannot be done using the strategy above, so the strategy we just talked about with the number line, and Aiden disagrees. So we're trying to answer this question, who is correct, and explain why. So please pause the video and try to work through this with a partner. So I'm going to draw out a number line. Put the 0 there. And there's my -4. -3.
Mr. Harrington, if you're still in the building, please come to the main office. Mr. Harrington, if you're still in the building, please come to the main office.
Sorry, you guys have to listen to this over afternoon announcements. So if I start out the same way, I've got -4. I can put that on my number line. But then I see this plus 3/4. It's not plus -3/4. If it were plus -3/4, that would be back here. But I'm moving 3/4 in a positive direction. So that is not correct, and that won't help me solve. Now, I need to move this way. I need to move toward 0 in a positive direction. 1, 2, 3/4. So where I end up is at a -3 1/4. So it's not the same strategy, but you can modify it to find a strategy that works. There's not really a different name for it, but know that you're modifying the strategy that we talked about first. It's not the exact same as the first few examples, but it's still a strategy that works. You just have to keep in mind whether you're adding a positive number or whether you're adding a negative and which way you would move on the number line. I'm going to pause for now, and then the second part of this lesson will be a second recording.